Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker, and today is June 4th, 2023. And I have a thing from Isaiah. This is the 46th chapter of Isaiah. I happen to think Isaiah is one of the most poetic portions of the Old or New Testament. This is from Isaiah 46, 3 and 4. Listen to me, O house of Jacob, all the remnant of the house of Israel, who have been born by me from your birth, carried from the womb, even to your old age. I am he, even when you turn gray, I will carry you. I have made, I will bear, I will carry, I will save. I spoke this last week to a church member about how it feels to be retired. After a busy work life, juggling family and job and who knows what else, along comes retirement. It's a different experience. You're not expected to be anywhere at any particular time. Your time is your own suddenly. Naps, I found, become a higher priority. Whereas before retirement, they were a matter of wishful thinking. Now there's no need to hold back on the naps. There's no requirement that we need to triage the pile of things on our plate or to budget our time to get it all done. There's just not that much on the plate after we retire. It's time to stop and smell the roses if they haven't all died during our work years. I understand retirement can be a huge change. I've often warned men, particularly men, not to retire and sit down in a recliner to do nothing. That seems to be a recipe for an early death. Some of us older folks have had lots to do in our retirement. I have 2 part-time jobs and a full-time volunteer job. It's kept me active, and I'm built that way. I just want to be busy. But it's not just a matter of continuing to have a job. In retirement, we have time suddenly to give to family. When we were working, there can be frustration at being torn between job and family. But now, suddenly, the time is available in retirement. And it's time extremely well spent. If we spend time on our children or our grandchildren, we have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old, each coming for a week this summer. There's also volunteer associations that are important to us that we can now support with our volunteer time. There's no shortage of things to do. But what happens when the gradually emerging problems of our later years curtail our options in retirement? Suddenly we can't do what we used to do. There comes a point, I know this is true for me, where it's no longer a good idea to climb that ladder. That's a real issue for me. I feel like I used to do it, I ought to be able to still do it, and I know in another part of my head that I'm really taking a risk to do that. We may have more time, but we also now have reduced capability if we're honest with ourselves. John Milton was one of the greatest English poets. He lived in the 1600s. And England in the 1600s was in huge turmoil. There was a 9-year English Civil War which broke out in 1642, and Milton was in the middle of it. He had aligned himself with Oliver Cromwell and the anti-monarchists, and he was seen as a radical at the time. Samuel Johnson, who was a contemporary and knew all of the poets of the scene at the time, grudgingly said that Milton's Paradise Lost was a poem which, with respect to design, may claim the first place, and with respect to performance, the second, among the productions of the human mind. Wow. Now, Johnson also wasn't that thrilled with Milton's politics. Johnson was a Tory, that is, he was in favor of the monarchy, and he described Milton's politics as those of an acrimonious and surly Republican. At the age of 42, in the midst of this tremendous revolution in England, which finally lost and the monarchy was reestablished, Milton lost his eyesight. He had risen in the Cromwellian government to be kind of a assistant secretary of state. He was in charge of England's interface with other European countries because of his mastery of multiple languages. I believe I read that Milton spoke and read at least 6 different languages. At around that time, because he was losing his sight, Milton wrote one of his sonnets, which became very well known. This is the sonnet. When I consider how my light is spent, ere half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lodged in me useless, though my soul more bent to serve therewith my Maker, and present my true account, lest he returning chide. Doth God exact day labor, light denied? I fondly ask, but patience, to prevent that murmur, soon replies, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. His state is kingly. Thousands at his bidding speed and post o'er land and ocean without rest. Here's the punchline. They also serve who only stand and wait. I think Milton overstated his incapacity. In fact, he wrote Paradise Lost after he could no longer see to write it down. He composed the long poem in his head and then dictated it in complete form to aides. But he makes a point. If we find that age brings limitations, all we can do is what we can do. We do what we can. There's a biological imperative to do as much as we can with the life that we have. God gives us life, not perfect life, but human life. But God doesn't fault us for declining capabilities. There's an old Arabian fable about a man riding a horse across the desert. As he rides, he comes across a strange sight, a bird lying on its back in the sand with its wings spread in the sand and its scrawny little legs up in the air. The man asks the bird what it is doing, and since this is a fable, the bird talks back to him. And the bird says, "Don't you know? Haven't you heard? The sky is going to fall." The man contemplates this and thinks, of course the sky isn't going to fall. But the bird thinks that that's what's going to happen. And so the man says, "Perhaps the sky will fall, but why are you lying in the sand with your legs in the air?" And the bird replies, "One does what one can." Given our stage in life, those of us who are retired, we do what we can. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God? They also serve who only stand and wait. Now, God bless you. If you find value in this, I'd appreciate it if you'd pass it along. And hang in there, stay safe.